Now, please recognize the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Sorensen, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being here this afternoon. My name is Eric Sorensen, and I represent the farm families and the communities in Illinois' 17th Congressional District. I was born in this district, where farming is much more than growing crops and raising livestock. It puts food on the table, fuel in our cars, and clothes on our backs. As my fellow Illinois colleague, Ms. Baczynski, mentioned, our state, Illinois, is the leading soybean producer and the second largest corn producer in our country. That's why it's imperative that the upcoming Farm Bill preserves crop insurance programs and fortifies the supply chains that we saw break. It also must include robust investment in agricultural research that focuses on improving farm and community resilience so that we can address the challenges of resource quality and enrich productivity by growing more on less land with fewer inputs. Securing these provisions in the upcoming Farm Bill and ensuring that the $43.8 billion in the Inflation Reduction Act reaches our farmers and ranchers. This allows us to be responsible stewards of our land, our water, our livestock, while we foster a thriving agricultural economy. Located in my district, the Jacobs Brothers Farms have been in operation for 3 generations. They raise beef cattle, corn, wheat, soybeans, and rye. Sourcing parts for their farm equipment has been a challenge, and also the rising costs of pesticides and fertilizer are a great concern to them. Mr. Rosenbush and Mr. LaRue, what can Congress do today to strengthen our supply chains, to keep costs manageable, and equipment parts accessible for farmers like the Jacobs?
Again, it's a great question, and we could probably spend a better part of the day talking about that. But just to summarize very quickly, I would just again stress for the challenges that you presented. It's as much about making sure that there is fair competition and access out there, the markets. When you have a fully functioning and competitive market, that makes sure that these laws of supply and demand that we talk about a lot here are actually working, and that we have true competition. And in the absence of that, we run into all sorts of challenges. That's on top of any kind of supply chain disruptions that we have. So as far as actions that Congress could take right now, it's ensuring that we are doing everything possible to create that fair playing field out there. And then I would say on top of that, many of the things that Mr. Rosenbush talked about in terms of creating access for even more domestic access.
So for the sake of not repeating some of the things I've said, I would just point out that there is a piece of legislation on the Senate side that Senator Marshall has introduced to address this exact topic called the Sustained Act. So if there's one thing Congress could do is I'd love for someone here in the House to pick up the companion bill here and push that forward. That would make a huge impact.
My background is being the local meteorologist. I talked about climate change on television, such that I didn't realize that our farm families were the ones that were watching me. They couldn't believe anybody out there, but they could believe Eric Sorensen for this. And they've come to me, and they've said, Eric, we trust that you're going to listen, because so many people in Washington don't listen to us, because we know things are changing, and we want to stop the politicization of climate. How can we all come together?
I would take this opportunity to again make reference to the Food and Agriculture Climate Alliance. This is an alliance that really is unique in many ways. We've talked about the fact that Farmers Union is joined by Farm Bureau at that table, but also with the environmental community, with the food manufacturers community, and forestry, as well as many in the conservation community have all come together. Many of the recommendations that we've made forward for the upcoming Farm Bill were all consensus. They were all focused on making sure that they were science-based, incentive-based, and really, where possible, create new market opportunities here. So if we are approaching climate with that kind of consensus and keeping our focus on the science, I think we would go a long way.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.